So, for assignment 7, we're going to be covering Unit 2 and Unit 13. And we've got from the 16th of March all the way to the 20th of April. Time in lessons, support in and outside of lessons as well. So we're going to be developing, using and organising our resources within your specialist subject here. We're going to be looking at the purpose, development and use of these resources in particular, as well as the legal requirements and the responsibilities that we need to be more mindful of now than ever in education. I will be giving you feedback in this assignment brief, as I have done with all of the previously submitted work. And here's what we're doing. There are 3 tasks. The first one is to create a report. Task 1. This is the resource report. You've been asked to review and develop resources within your own specialist area and to produce a report. You have to review your current resources as they are now. Explain the purpose of resources in teaching and learning. In particular, relate this to your subject specialism. What are you using right now? Hardware, software, physical objects. Think about resources you have access to in your classrooms, the spaces that you and your learners occupy. What are the purpose of those resources? How do they aid learning? How do they enhance the curriculum, prepare people for the skills that you are needing them to develop? Explain the purpose of these resources. What's their intention? Part B, analyse. So take apart, deconstruct the effectiveness of specific resources in your area. This follows on nicely from Part A. In particular, and how they meet or do not meet individual learning needs in teaching learning. So, analyse whether they are meeting the needs of your learners. You might want to relate to your current cohort, for example, and how they are aiding and developing, enhancing and augmenting the learning experience and meeting individual learning needs for the individual specific learners that you have, because they might not be appropriate for all of your learners. They might be difficult to manage, to use, to access. Reflect on that in this section of the assignment. So this review you do for task 1 is intentional, in that without having this in place we can't really proceed. The outcome of the review is that new resources now need to be thought about in relation to your subject specialism, and what might you do and what might you bring to your subject specialism in light of your review from task 1. In order to design appropriate resources, your report now needs to be expanded for part 2 of task 1, which is looking now for you to give me an analysis of the principles of resource design. So the principles of resource design, we'll talk about this in class a bit more, but here I'm looking for us to reflect on the clarity of the purpose of the resources, inclusivity, accessibility of your resources, engagement and interactivity, authenticity and relevance to your sector, your domain, your area, and adaptability and flexibility as well. These principles of resource design, I want you to analyse resources in relation to this. So think about this in relation to your subject. What's needed? You're going to be evaluating, weighing up the pros and cons, the value of sources that inform resource developments. Social media, books, peers, forums, teach meets, conferences, journals, articles, heads of digital learning, learning technologists. Evaluate, weigh up the pros and cons of the sources of information that are available to help you make decisions about resource development. Which is useful to you? Which is most effective to you? Evaluate these different sources that are available to you to inform your resource development, growth and evolution of the toolkit you use in your subject area. Part E, we need to analyse how different theories, principles and models of curriculum design, going back to assignment 5 here, can be used to inform resource development. So you might want to link this to the theorist that you championed and analysed for your presentation in assignment 5. Analyse how that curriculum theorist and their ideas can be used to inform resource development relating to that theorist. Let's see you connect that. Part F, analyse again ways in which resources can be adapted to enable an inclusive approach. So look at different resources we're going to be covering in class and think about ways in which they can be adapted, perhaps to provide an audio, video or text capability of showing evidence of learning, as opposed to it just being a Word document. Maybe it can be voice typed. If it's perhaps showing competence of a hands-on skill, maybe it can be captured using video or a witness statement or a podcast Viva discussion, or images on a blog or site annotated to show understanding and reflection of the process of the skill learned by the students. Analyse ways in which resources can be adapted to enable an inclusive approach to provide equity of access to different ways of learning. Task 2. Here you're going to make an information booklet, and we might want to revisit our friend Canva for this. You're going to be producing an information booklet in which you do the following. Part A, explain ways in which resources can be classified and stored and organised in a way that they are accessible to all teachers, students, perhaps in different channels or topics or headings, and ways that your organisation, relate it to your organisation perhaps, consider best practice. If you're struggling with this, then of course we will cover examples in class, but ways in which resources can be classified and stored so they are searchable, accessible. Part B of Task 2 asks you to review ways of sharing resources with other learning professionals, whether that be in a Microsoft Teams space, a chat group, a Discord, perhaps an email thread, maybe in-person meetups, maybe it's in departmental meetings, maybe it's in cross-college conferences and opportunities and school teacher meetups perhaps. Maybe it's in quality assurance checks with peers who are delivering similar qualifications as yourself. What ways are there of sharing resources with other learning professionals and them sharing resources with you? Review these different ways. What works best for you? What's effective? What's safe? Bear that in mind. Part C of Task 2, review legal requirements and responsibilities relating to the development and use of resources. Here we'll be looking at the accessibility guidelines in particular. We'll be looking at what is fair in terms of GDPR and appropriate. We'll be looking at the legal ramifications and requirements and what we're responsible for as teachers relating to the development of resources, for example including images of students who haven't consented to be in the video or image examples, perhaps not advisable in this context or any context for that matter. Maybe using a student's work as an exemplar without their express permission and a GDPR consent form is something you might review here. The legal responsibilities and requirements that you have when you are developing and using resources. I'm going to be reviewing this and thinking about this for Task 2, Part C. Task 2, Part D. We need to analyse the implications of intellectual property rights and copyrights for the development and use of resources. Now in education we get a bit more wiggle room than many other industries in relation to use of resources, but in what contexts? When is it fair use? When is it appropriate? When is it okay to use different resources? When is the copyright and intellectual property rights being infringed upon? When we are creating resources for our learners, we'll be looking into what we can and cannot do as educators. To finish Assignment 7, for Task 3, you're going to do a reflective account in which you, for Part A, evaluate the effectiveness of your own practice in relation to development and use of resources to engage and meet individual needs of learners in your specialist area. Hopefully when you come to Task 3 you would have tried and experimented and tested lots of different ways of approaching this, and there would have been some growth and development through this module in the lessons with myself and the one-to-ones you may book in addition to the lessons with myself. How effective is your own practice in relation to the development and use of resources? Are you more mindful and conscious of what works to engage learners? Maybe there's something here that could inform your action research. Task 3, Part B. What are your strengths and areas for improvement in relation to development and use of resources in your own specialist area? I love this subject, this topic, so I can help you with this. I'll be very keen to give you feedback on this in relation to observations we as a teaching and learning team have carried out on you as our learners. So for Part B, your strengths and areas for improvement. We've all got them. It's nice to know where our blind spots are and how we might adapt and iterate our resource game. Task 3, Part C, a plan is needed in which you identify opportunities to improve your own skills. Perhaps a mindful, intentional use of social media to use the hive mind of resources, which is what I do, to improve my skills and development of my resources. Or perhaps opportunities for CPD, for meetups with your peers, perhaps visits to other schools, colleges or educational training providers. What's your plan to identify opportunities? Okay, so the evidence, the checklist, I'm looking for a written report here to cover the criteria. Looking for an information booklet, and for Task 3, a reflective account. Task 3 might be a vlog or podcast or a written piece or another adaptive approach. Why not experiment for Task 3 in terms of how you capture the evidence? Good opportunity to. As ever, your work should be presented in a professional academic style and include evidence of research. You should link your research coherently, cogently, clearly to your writing using citations and always in that Harvard referencing style. Bibliography as well is needed, and you guys are very good at that. I must commend you on that as a group. The criteria which I will be marking you against is here, and we'll be talking about this criteria through the lessons. If you can give me some feedback on the module here and what you took from it, that would be really useful before your submission, and I of course will give you your feedback here. I will also be signing and dating for the mighty Vicky Soanes to then take a sample and internally verify. So we have from the 16th of March, today, at the time of recording, until the 20th of April to work on this assignment 7, which will focus on developing, using and organising resources. We'll be creating and reflecting on your progress all the way through this assignment.